big, bold, and inclusive vision for the future of Canada. We believe that Canada can and must become a model of democracy, human rights fulfillment, and women's equality, both for ourselves and for the rest of the world. As women, we embrace and are a part of every community and group in the nation. We understand and acknowledge the oppression, disadvantage, violence, and marginalization that women in all our diversity experience. We are dedicated to a future that brings real equality in conditions and circumstances to women and to everyone. Women's voices bring critical value to areas in which they are currently not heard.
The pathway to Canada's future must be boldly collaborative, building its foundation from the original nation-to-nation relationships with Indigenous nations. The spirit and intent of the relationships and treaties forged were based on mutual respect, prosperity, and protection. Reconciliation is fundamental.
A challenge in Canada is that the country was shaped by waves of colonialization and immigration. Hence, Canada must begin a new national dialogue where a new constitutional agreement will be put forward with Quebec, the other provinces and territories, as well as Indigenous nations. We recognize that the future entails an ability to respect and protect French and Indigenous languages and cultures so they can thrive and respect all other languages. These founding pieces of our shared history need to be fully acknowledged.
Confederation was built from east to west, but the North was not a part of the vision. Going forward, we need to recognize the North and Northerners as the decision makers reflected in the modern treaties and other agreements forged between Indigenous nations, federal, provincial, and territorial governments. Northerners must have access to infrastructure and institutions as they choose to complete the map of Canada.
Canada is a large and complex country. We need to know each other in order to achieve the social cohesion that will map our future. We need to support the sharing of our history and culture through research and the arts from coast to coast to coast. We acknowledge that nurturing the creation and expression of our stories and our identities will ensure a future grounded in possibility.
Because equality is a core value of Canada, we recognize that in order for true equality to be actualized, it must be substantive and reflected in laws, institutions, and implementation. Building the future of Canada necessitates that all people have a sense of belonging and full citizenship.
We recognize that women of color, including women from immigrant communities, face specific barriers to equality, dignity, and humanity in Canada. We also recognize that racialized women stand in solidarity with the men of our communities to resist systematic racism and violence. There can be no equality for women or any people without recognizing the specific race-based challenges faced by communities of color, and that all programs, mechanisms, organizations, and solutions must take race into account.
All people in Canada have the right to personal autonomy, including the right for women to make decisions about their own bodies.
We cannot conceive of crime outside of social justice models that recognize that socioeconomic factors that specifically criminalize Indigenous women, communities of color, women with varying abilities, and trans women and people struggling with addictions. Canada must implement transformative justice models that support marginalized women, both as victims of crime and of criminalization, and that recognize the devastating impact of incarceration on these communities. Addressing the disproportionate representation of marginalized communities in the justice system involves seeking community-driven and cross-cultural restorative models.
Given that economic research has demonstrated that inequality is detrimental to a healthy economy, it is imperative that we take action to ensure economic wealth is shared fairly. This is central to the future of Canada and to our ability to deliver on Canada's core value of equality. In order to achieve full equality, we must support labor and social movements and other civil society organizations that act as equality-promoting forces, as as we cannot just depend on markets to deliver full equality for women. Because of women's persistent economic inequality and the growing number of economically marginalized people, we must reinvest in Canada's social programs so they can foster and support equality.
Accessible education is a right to allow everyone throughout their lives to achieve their full potential in any fields that they choose. We boldly suggest a society that supports lifelong learning and invests in creative research and development that will advance scientific knowledge to positively benefit people in Canada.
We believe that the work of people, who are mostly women, providing care, paid and unpaid, is essential to our economy now and will remain so in the future. Providing affordable caregiving support systems is critical to allow access and opportunity for all socioeconomic strata.
We need to redouble our efforts to work across all sectors and all jurisdictions for truly accountable systems for health in order to achieve our bold vision for all Canadians to be as healthy as possibly physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Over the past 150 years, the people living in the territory of Canada transitioned from largely rural to largely urban. As urbanization will keep expanding in the future, the role of municipalities, their revenues, and their power in providing essential services and important determinants of the quality of life must be reevaluated without leaving rural Canada behind.
As good governance was chosen by the Fathers of Confederation as a founding value, we emphasize that women and Indigenous nations must be full partners in the governance of Canada in the future. A commitment to gender parity in all government bodies in the public and private sector merits a bold effort to achieve that. Women and civil society organizations must have mechanisms that foster and support their full participation in shaping policies and holding governments to account.
The bounty of nature has shaped this country. A healthy environment is one of the key legacies for the future inhabitants of the territory of Canada. To prepare this future, the Canada of today should transition rapidly towards sustainable energy and address climate change.
We collectively have no future unless we protect our people, especially children, women and men, land, water, and nations. We need to always consider our future generations, and they should be at the forefront of all decision-making.